The Bible isn't a list of rules about how we can fix ourselves or the world. The Bible is about what God has done to mend our broken world and to mend us and reunite us with Him, to have an eternal relationship with Him through His Son. A wise, loving, and powerful God made the world and everything in it. He made humans in His image. He made us to have a relationship with Him. He made us to have a perfect relationship with one another. He made us to steward what He had created. He made us to glorify Him in all of our actions, in all of our relationships, and in everything that we do. As we love God and love one another and steward what He has given us, we bring this goodness into the world and glorify God.
So if God created us in His image to reflect His glory, to have fellowship with Him, to have fellowship with one another, why isn't that our everyday experience? Why is it that there's relational strife between man and woman? Why is it that families fall apart? Why is it that races don't get along? Why do people groups fight amongst themselves? Why do nations go to war? And the answer really is because our ancestors in Adam and Eve, and every single human being that's ever followed them, has decided that, you know what? My design is better than God's design. God created Adam and Eve in perfect harmony, perfect unity. And He gave them one command, that they might not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but that everything else in the universe was theirs to enjoy. And they chose to go their own way. In doing so, they chose self-autonomy, to be completely autonomous from God. And so when Adam and Eve took that path, death entered the world. Proverbs says this: there is a way that seems right to a man, but the end therein is death. Here's how this works. You see, you and I were created to be in connection with the living God. He's the source of our life. And when we declare autonomy or independence from Him, we unplug from the source of life. Death is the natural consequence of living a life that says, I'm independent of God. So it's not like God says, I've got to squash this person because they're rebelling. It's we've said to God, I don't need you as my source of life. And God says, you're free to go your own way. And when we go our own way, we no longer reflect His glory. Anything and everything which is bad comes from and springs from the fact that you and I, our grandparents, all the way back to Adam and Eve, have said to God, you know what? My way's better. And that's why we are here and experience the pain and the suffering that we experience today.
From the very beginning, God had a plan to redeem His people and to bridge the gap in that separation in His relationship with them. In Genesis 3, we read that He would send a Redeemer to redeem His people and to crush the serpent who had tempted Adam and Eve. This plan would be carried out through a covenant and a promise that He made to His people. He selected one man, Abraham, to be the father of many nations and be the father of His people, God's chosen people, who He chose to represent Him on the earth. He didn't just give them a list of rules. He didn't just give them kings and prophets and priests to show them or anyone else how to be better people. He was bringing about His goodness and His promise through His chosen people. And so through the prophets, through the priests, through the kings, through the commandments, through all the laws that we find in the Old Testament, as God's people go up and down just like we do as we navigate this broken world and we navigate our own broken hearts, we see God's promise still stands. God's promise to redeem His people. God's promise to do something about the brokenness of our world. The Old Testament tells us that a promised Messiah, a King of all kings, would come. In Jesus, we see in His life, in His ministry, in the miracles that He did, in His death, in His resurrection, in His ascension, we see everything that He says and does, that He is fully man, but also fully God. He is the Messiah, the anointed one, the one that would come and be the kingdom come. And not only that, he doesn't just show us what the kingdom of God is like, he pays our way into God's kingdom. Because just like those prophets and priests and kings of old, we cannot earn our way into heaven by following God's rules or by trying to be holy. We need someone to pay our way, and that's what Jesus came to do.
Jesus Christ lived a perfectly righteous life, but he also became sin for us. The Apostle Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21, he who knew no sin became sin for us. And you and I, and everyone who calls on the name of the Lord, can receive that gift of grace by faith. Faith not in our own works, not in our own righteousness, but on the righteousness of Christ and on the full payment of Christ. He fulfilled all the righteous requirements of the law because you and I could not. On the cross, the great exchange occurred. He took your sin and my sin, and he offers to give us his righteousness. You say, well, Brooks, he died on the cross. Yes, he did. But he was buried, and 3 days later he rose again, demonstrating that he conquered death, demonstrating that his payment for sin was accepted by his Father, demonstrating that his gift of righteousness to those who believe in him is received by grace through faith.
Because of what Jesus has done, and because of the indwelling Spirit, we can experience the goodness of the kingdom, the power of the kingdom, the power of God, not just in eternity, but today. Jesus says the kingdom is coming, but has now come in him. So because of what he has done for us, because of the indwelling Spirit, we can participate in the kingdom come. We can be a part of what God is doing in our world. And all of that points towards the final kingdom to come in eternity, when his perfect will is done in a new heaven and new earth, and we are restored to a perfect relationship with our God, enjoying his presence, enjoying being united with him for eternity.
Check out the other videos in this playlist, or to learn more about us, connect with others in the church, and find out how you can get involved. Click on the Connect link in the video description.